Today we are going to be learning some shortcuts. I've selected 15 tracks, including fan favourites Mushroom Gorge and DK Summit, but also much harder tracks like Dragon Driftway and Mute City. But first, let's start with one of the biggest shortcuts in the game on Snowland. This is an absolute must-learn shortcut. It saves about 2 seconds or so, and if you're playing in an online race and you're a little bit behind, you're going to need to do this shortcut to catch up. And it only takes 1 mushroom. So here we go, let's line it up correctly and jump. Oh, that's embarrassing. Okay, so don't do what I just did and go too far to the right and go out of bounds. What you want to do is hug the left side where the snowman is and don't push it too far to the right, and you should be absolutely fine. Here we go, same again. You want to stay as close to the snowman as possible and avoid going too far to the right, and you've made it. Very, very easy shortcut. Here we go, online race, and even with the blooper, we can still make it. Next up on the list, Alpine Pass. So this is a very simple one if you do it correctly. That's really important that you hit that trick there off that pipe to make sure that you have the distance to then use 1 mushroom there, use another when you land. I've messed that up a little bit, but you know, you get the point. You need 3 mushrooms to do this, okay? And it's really important you get that first trick. Here we go again. So effectively, we want to make sure that we aim first and foremost for this pipe with the smoke, get the trick off of there, and then hold down as much as we can on our controller to extend the amount of time that we're in the air. As soon as we land, we can use a mushroom, and then we can use our other 2 mushrooms, build up a mini turbo, and hop towards the end. Perfect. Which shortcut are we gonna do next? I want a snowboard cross, or DK Summit as some people will know it as. Again, a very cool shortcut to do. That wasn't ideal, and I'll tell you why. The biggest thing to learn about this is the setup. What you don't want to do is in this clip here and get too many tricks. It completely ruins your alignment and makes it very, very tricky to do the shortcut, and you could even fall off or land in an awful spot. What you do want to do is make sure you're aiming for this particular mound with the coin on. You can then trick off of this one and all of the other ones that you end up touching, apart from the last one where you want to start a drift instead of tricking. This will give you the perfect alignment to start one slide and then another slide, and then use your mini turbo off the edge there, and you should land on or around the final boost panel. Right, let's turn it up a notch. We're going Wild Woods. Now this is a very hard technical shortcut to do, and to be honest, this is my first attempt. You can see it doesn't go very well. So what did I do wrong? Well, what you actually are supposed to do is to drive straight off of these boost panels without tricking, apart from the last one, I missed it there. And then that kind of positions you in a much better spot. Now, I will slow the clip down, but effectively you can see here we're only tricking on the last boost panel, we get another trick, and then you can kind of hop through the off-road. Now, the reason why this is so technical is because there's a lot going on here, okay? So we get to the end boost panel, we trick, we start a slide, we then trick again, and then we start another slide, and then we start hopping through. And that just allows us to maintain much more speed so that we actually skip less of the off-road. Time to knock out 2 in 1. Let's do Rainbow Road and Piranha Plant Cove. Now, Piranha Plant Cove, I made a video on fairly recently. They're really easy shortcuts once you get them down. That one is very simple. You kind of just hold your controller down and to the right, and you sail through the water. Same thing for this one. You're just holding down with your analog stick and a little bit to the right, and you'll just naturally float through this, and you'll get a purple mini turbo every single time. Now, the harder one of the 3 is this final one here. And as you can see, we are aiming for this little gap to the right of the coral. The only problem is it's very hard to get there. And I tried this many times. Too many to show, and this is pretty much what happened every time. Until I realised what you can actually do to take it a little bit safer is to aim for the left side of the coral. And this just means you don't have to float through as much water, and you can just land and do it much simpler. Now, Rainbow Road is a very easy shortcut to do, and it saves quite a bit of time. So after the glider section, you simply drift around this corner, and then you walk into this boost panel and land. It's very simple. You can even hold a drift through to build up a mini turbo for when you land. There's the orange, and you save quite a bit of time. And also remember to hit this first boost panel as you take the corner. It's probably the quickest way to do that section. Very easy shortcut. Right, now to challenge myself a bit. Mute City is a 5-star difficulty rating, and Big Blue is pretty easy. So let's start with that, warm ourselves up, and then get on to Mute City. So the shortcuts are very simple. You get a little bit of anti-grav, so you know you have a lot to play with. This was my first attempt, and other than the head bonk, it was pretty good. The way to correctly do this, and I'm just showing you the bit before because you can also take these lines fairly tightly, but the way to do this shortcut properly is not to actually trick off of this ramp in front of us now, it's to do a drift off of it. So you can see we start the drift here, and we can take this corner really nice and tightly and just kind of float down. We can get a trick off of there, and then we start a left drift, and again, just float down, and you skip a whole section. You do miss some items, but it's very, very quick. We'll fast forward through all of this because there is another shortcut towards the end. On this section, you take the purple path, and when you get to the boost panel, you switch to the path below the green path, and then hit both boost panels, and then switch back to the purple path. You miss so many corners, and it is much, much faster. Mute City has a notoriously difficult shroomless shortcut, and the reason it's so difficult is because this ramp here is completely off-road, and as soon as you touch it, you lose all of the speed that you've gained through your mini turbo. So what are you supposed to do? Well, you're not supposed to drive just straight onto it because you lose all your speed. You're also not supposed to do what I do here and jump into the wall and then bounce into the off-road. That's not the way to do it. What you're supposed to do is hug the wall right here and just try and jump over the off-road to land on the final trickable section. And you can see I almost did it there, but it was still a little bit too slow and I didn't quite get it. And finally, we get the trick there. Now, what I did particularly well on that shortcut, and again, I'll slow it down for you so that you can see, is one, avoid the boost panel, because that buys us a little bit more time to position ourselves correctly. And then we want to jump right here. It looks like we're going into the wall, and we do carve the wall a little bit, but it's much better to hit the wall and jump over the ramp than it is to go through the off-road. Let's try 3 for the price of 1. Squeaky Clean Sprint, Mario Circuit, and Mushroom Gorge. Mushroom Gorge is one that I struggle with so much. I think no matter how many times I practice this, I'm always going to be a little bit rusty on it. One thing I've realised from doing it a few too many times is it's all about the setup, and I'll show you exactly what I mean by that in just a second. So one thing you will know, having played this course, is these mushrooms are absolutely ridiculous. You can just never really predict where they're going or what they're doing, which then makes this shortcut a little bit hard to do. But there is a way to make things a little bit easier for yourself. I mean, from a standing start, it's easy. So it's all about the positioning and what you do beforehand. And here's a quick compilation of all of my failures in this session to get this footage. Thank God I'm wearing a helmet because I've just hit my head so many times. Even the good ones where I made it across, I went into the other side of the wall. So what do we need to do better? Well, the first thing is to get a super bounce right here to make sure that we can land on this green mushroom, and then we don't want to trick off of that first red one. We want to hold a drift. And I'll replay this for us in just a moment so that you can see what the hell I was talking about. So we hold a drift here and release it just as we land to do what's called a super bounce. If you don't know what it is, go and watch a video on it. It's much more informative than this video. We can trick off of that first one, but what we don't want to do is trick off of this red one. So we hold a drift instead and then release the drift and the mini turbo when we hit this red one, giving us another super bounce to jump over the final mushroom, allowing us to land without kind of any confusion and giving us as much time as possible to set up for the trick. We then use the mushroom and let go of the mini turbo and do a jump at the same time to make it over. We can take a bit of a breather for this one because this is a really easy first time shortcut that anyone will be able to... Who's planting these trees? What we need to do is use 2 mushrooms to get to the glider section. We can then use the glider to get onto this wall and very easily cut off that last corner. Now I'll show it to you again, all in one. We go through the trees and land as early as possible on this little bit here, just to give us enough time to drift out of it. And finally, Squeaky Clean Squirt. Is that what it's called? Squirt? I don't know. That feels like it shouldn't be called that. What we want to do is really just hold a drift off of this. Okay, I've missed the drift. What we want to do is hold a drift off of that first ramp and then hold a drift off of this sponge here and keep holding it, because what we're doing is charging up a Ultra Mini Turbo. You can see there the pink flames, It's this part here though, is the tricky part, getting over all of this rubbish in the pipe. So let's see if we can try that one more time. Again, holding the mini turbo there, getting the mini turbo. This is a really important thing, because this whole time we're charging that purple mini turbo, giving us loads and loads of speed, and then kind of throwing ourselves. I have no idea how to do this, if I'm honest. I'm just going to trial and error and try and force my way through this shortcut. So let's have another go. Okay, well that didn't work at all. Okay, I mean, no, that wasn't good either. After many times of trial and error, I realised what you need to do. It's very, very simple. You kind of just throw yourself at the wall, and you need to try and hit that first paper clip, that brown paper clip. If you hit that, you'll bounce over the rest of the shortcut. 4 more to go. Let's choose a hard one and another easy one. Ribbon Road is a fairly easy one. Once you've done it once, you kind of know the gist moving forward. You kind of just do the drift and jump off, and that's pretty much it for that one. So not too much to explain, but it's very worthwhile learning. Hyrule Circuit is a difficult shroomless shortcut, but again very effective when you do it correctly. So the problem people have most of the time is they jump too late and they don't get across the grass. Like we do there, we jump nice and early. So I'm going to slow down this footage. This is me doing it incorrectly. You can see here it takes a bit too long to build up the mini turbo, and I do not jump early enough, and by the time I jump I'm already on the grass and I've lost all of my speed. So this is me doing it correctly. You can see there we jump nice and early. We even avoid the piranha plant that's on the right there by staying a little bit further to the left. Is it time? Is it time to try and take on Dragon Driftway? Hell no, not yet. We're going DK Mountain. This is one that I'm familiar with. I know roughly what I'm doing. Oh, ignore that poor driving here. But there's 2 ways you can do this first shortcut. The easy way, which is to just drive in a straight line and trick and cut this whole corner off. Or there is the more difficult way, which is this. Which is this. Which is this. You just drive next to that barrel and hope that you go over the mountain. Now, when we compare these side by side, you can see we trick at the exact same time. Actually, maybe the one on the left, the more advanced or harder way is slightly faster, but actually it's about equal and still much faster than anyone who's just going around normally. You can see here we basically get to the same bit at the same time there. So I always go the easy way. Now, the bigger shortcut on this track is the gap jump here. Now, the biggest flaw to this is if you're going too fast. You can see I basically stopped moving there, but I still made it over, because going slower is much better than going too fast. If you go too fast, I got a purple mini turbo there, you know, you're just out of control, and it's no good to anyone. So what I found was best was to really brake drift there, brake drift as much as you can, and you kind of want to face back on yourself to make sure that you get over. I've got another video on this if you really want to watch it. Dun dun dun, I've been dreading this one. Dragon Driftway. The reason why I've been dreading this is because it is very hard to do. That was my first attempt, so I think the nerves got to me. This is my second attempt. Again, the nerves still getting to me. It's a very narrow pathway that you have to get through, and you have to do quite a lot to make it over. And even when you do a lot, you know, you're struggling to actually make the final jump. So I'm going to show you a few of my fails first, so we get an idea of actually how difficult this is, and then I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it, and hopefully you will have better success than me. So the first thing that's really important is getting a purple mini turbo through that first corner. If you don't get that, you may as well just abort mission. It's not happening. You're not making it over. This is all the times I didn't have a mini turbo. And I will slow this down again, but once you have that purple mini turbo, you then need to align yourself correctly. And this is the best shortcut that I did, this one right here. So I'm going to slow this down and talk about it. So once we get that purple mini turbo, you can see we're waiting, we're holding it there. As soon as we get it, we release it, and then we do 2 left hops to align ourselves, and then we start our right drift. And this is where we get the blue mini turbo and finally jump at the exact right time to make it to the other side. It's very finicky. There's a lot going on. It's a very hard shortcut to do, but it can save a lot of time. Anyway, that is the end of this video. It wasn't really supposed to be a guide. It was more so just me practicing the different shortcuts and filming it, but I guess it kind of felt like a guide. But Equally, if we need a guide on other shortcuts in the future, let me know and I'll be happy to make another video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.